Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Tanuki Justice for the Nintendo Switch. And I have to say, right off the bat, this game blew me away for a whole lot of reasons, but before we get into those reasons, we're going to start off with the story. And as you might expect from a classic arcade-style action platformer, the story itself is actually pretty light. All we really get is a few seconds and a couple of scenes of some supposed evil claiming to dominate the world, and our brave Tanuki looking directly into the screen and saying, "Not today, Satan." And after this brief story interlude, we're thrown into the game's mandatory tutorial, and I'm just guessing that our little Tanuki ran out of bubblegum because he dived straight into kicking some serious booty. The words classic and arcade and platformer generally have a few gaming motifs that come along with them, and one is being incredibly simple, if not incredibly basic. And though Tanuki Justice is both simple and fundamental, and even though it only has a small handful of levels to play through, you really shouldn't expect to be beating this one on your lunch break. Because it is due to the simple fact that Tanuki Justice is so fundamental as an arcade-style platformer. If you're not a gamer who's well versed in that genre, you may have a pretty steep learning curve. And though all you really have to work with is a jump, a double jump, and your small shuriken, there are certain upgrades that you can pick up along the way, such as a shield to protect you from damage, and the occasional upgrade to your shuriken to give it a little more length, as well as a charged special power move. Regardless of which upgrades you get or how long you've held the charge bar for your power move, taking a single point of damage, whether it's being hit by an enemy's attack or being hit by the enemy themselves, is going to pretty much cause you to lose one of your 3 lives and forfeit any power-ups or upgrades you may have earned to that point. Thankfully though, while 1-ups are rare, they do exist, though you might have to do a little bit of hunting in each of the levels to figure out where they are. Each of the game's levels though, while essentially hosting the same types of combat, is designed with its own unique theme. And therefore it's not only the boss fights that are going to be different, novel, and unique, all of the random mobs that you run into on the way to the boss's room level end are also completely redesigned with their own attack patterns and their own movement styles. And as such, part of the learning curve for the difficulty of Tanuki Justice isn't just making your way with your quick reflexes, but it's also learning the mobs and the level design. Thankfully though, each of the levels is pretty short. You do get 3 lives and respawns are immediate. And so even though a death might send you all the way back to the level's beginning, it really doesn't send you back that far. But moving on to the game's visuals and audio, it's easy to see from the footage over my shoulder that this is a truly retro-inspired game. But somehow, despite the game's low pixel count, the developers really managed to bring the game forward visually with the really clean graphics and smooth animations. The audio soundtrack as well is exactly what you would expect from the era. It's high energy, it's intense, and somehow it's just poppy enough to keep the air of the game pretty light. And if I had to say so, I'd probably say it was a little bit inspired by Mega Man. But now that we've talked about the game's general mechanics, its visuals, its audio, this is where we would normally dive into the game's critiques. And though I'm sad that I don't get to produce much more content in this review, I'm happy to say that Tanuki Justice really didn't have anything for me to critique. It's one of those rare games that knows exactly what it's trying to be and just hits the nail on the head so perfectly that even if there are things that you could call flaws, they are kind of intrinsically linked to the experience that you would expect from what the game's trying to do. Tanuki Justice is not an easy game. You will die so many times. But it's not like the developers gave you endlessly long levels with no checkpoints. They actually designed the game with that in mind, with these shorter level designs and quicker enemy combat. And though every single level is different and definitely gets a lot harder as you progress through the game, the controls are so tight it's really hard to call anything a cheap death. And despite there being some areas where it seems like you have no choice but to take a hit, with hidden 1-ups, shields, and 3 lives to play with in every single level, Tanuki Justice is actually pretty forgiving for a classic style action platformer. But one of the best parts, and I'm sorry I don't get to show it in the footage, is after I played through the game myself, I brought the game over to my friend, and we actually had a chance to play it in 2-player mode. And while normally you would expect adding a second player to sufficiently decrease the difficulty level of the game, 2-player mode actually adds several different mobs, gives the bosses more HP, and does stack up the difficulty just a bit to make sure that it's still fun and enjoyable no matter how many people are playing. And so overall, taking a step back and looking at Tanuki Justice as a full experience, it's just an incredible game if that is a genre you're into. And so if you were a fan of the classic Mega Mans, of two-player games like Super Ninja Boy, or anything else that was Game Boy, Super Game Boy, or SNES era gaming, you're probably going to find something you enjoy about Tanuki Justice. But anyway, that does about wrap up the review of Tanuki Justice now on the Nintendo Switch, so if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw us a like or a comment to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. Because there are new and unique indie games coming out literally every single day, and whether it's an easy hard pass or an absolutely unforgettable gem, chances are if it's on the Switch, you're going to find out about it right here. But anyway, this has been The Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.